We have talked a bit about Monster House on this channel, and I did a theory a while ago on what if Constance was alive throughout the entirety of the film, and not through the house but actually physically there. What would she have done? And my speculations are actually pretty interesting as I go through the story. If you haven't watched that video yet, I'll be sure to link it down in the description. This 2006 film revolves around the classic story of a haunted house that a group of kids want to better inspect. The twist being the haunting isn't an actual person and she is the physical house. Now that alone sounds pretty unique, and it is, but the better part is Constance herself. Today I wanted to revisit this movie again and go through some of the best parts, starting with the concept. But before we get into it, some trivia for you. What is the very first scene we see a reference to? Leave your guesses in the comments down below and stick around to the end of the video to find out if your answer was correct. I think what's amazing to me is the entire concept of the film. We have all heard about a story of a haunted house and the backstory being the original owner disliking whoever comes into the house, and although this does sound pretty similar to what Constance is doing, it's different as she initially became the house. Instead of swinging doors open and dropping certain things off of shelves around the house, as the kids are inside, we notice as the audience that it isn't your typical haunted house, manipulating the physical walls and structure of the house as she pleases. Of course, this can be very weird at first, but fascinating the more you look at it. The supernatural idea that the house is an actual person and not just someone inside the home haunting anyone who walks in is one of the reasons why many people love this movie from start to finish, wondering how the end goal was going to be achieved. Aside from the scary part of the story of how the house comes to life and the kids are a little bit too curious, we learn about Constance and who she was before she took over the house. It's not much, but we get to see her in her day-to-day life, being the laughingstock of the circus she once worked at until she was let go and caged. At that point, Nevercracker came to her rescue and immediately fell in love with each other, building the house that she loved in the middle of nowhere as she dreamt of a life that someone would finally care about her. One thing that we could spot is that she was very assertive and protective of what was hers and willing to do anything to protect it. Constance's character was very original and unlike anything we have seen before, and even though she was the villain, we grew to understand her and the relationship between her and Nevercracker. This is something we writers like to call intent versus obstacle in stories, and this refers to what the drive is for the main character and what is getting in their way from getting there. In this case, DJ has been spying on this house for a long time and wants to know what is going on in there. Then comes the obstacle of the house being alive and not letting him come anywhere near it. And it doesn't feel like one of those movies where you're screaming at the TV yelling at the kids to stop what they're doing, because you're curious too. And that's another reason. The creators were careful to make the scenes in a way that kept our curiosity wheels spinning. Anybody who has seen this movie can't deny the love story. Now, it's no Disney Pixar Carl and Ellie story, but I almost want to say it's something that could be compared. After we spent time with Nevercracker and went into the house, DJ confronts Nevercracker about the wife and realizes that the story isn't what he seems, to which Nevercracker tells us who his wife was through a flashback. He sits in the middle of a crowd booing Constance as she sits behind a curtain reading The Lady as Big as a House. Being the only person who admired her looks, after being pelted with tomatoes, she is then locked up, let go by the circus, to which Nevercracker finds her and saves her. Time passes and he buys the land on which the house was built. Now we have to stop for a second and realize that not only were they in love, but Nevercracker was the only person that had any interest in Constance, as we see, so there was a big attachment, and she's very protective over what's believed to be hers. Another interesting fact about this film is even though it takes place during Halloween, it doesn't have to be a specific Halloween movie. And this next one is just my personal opinion, but the characters Elizabeth and Bones just seemed like they were unnecessary. Of course, it was a bit more exciting in terms of being funny with them, as just this weird couple falling all over each other, but the story could have been told without either of them there. With an average score of 4.5 out of 5 stars, it's no secret that this film has wowed many. A lot of people were mesmerized by the love story between Constance and Nevercracker once we really got to learn about them as people. The animation was something that a lot of people recognized too. For the timing of the movie, the movement of the house, and the believability of its movement, and picturing the windows as the eyes and the door as the mouth put it into a whole different perspective for the audience, but it's something that we will never forget. And speaking of the animation of the house, the more you look at it, the more you realize how the creators who worked on this film were able to persuade us that an inanimate object is a real person. Like we said earlier, this isn't your average haunted house movie. When the kids are inside the house, there are more things than meets the eye, that Constance is able to control every single piece of not only the house, but the property. And we love the fact that it looks so surreal. Now, what a lot of people may not know is that there are actually a comic book version of this film that followed the life of Bones and Skull. No particular particular further research, but I just thought that was interesting. When a fight over the future of the band tears the two friends apart, Bones finds himself, inexplicably, in front of Old Man Nevercracker's monster house. There, Bones must confront a wrathful home, childhood memories, and his dejected girlfriend if he plans on saving his friendship and his life. Of course, we have to talk about the moment when the house actually lifts from the ground. Not only the animation and the realism, but we understand what triggered her. She's protective over what she believes to be hers, and obviously she's not one to share. Nevercracker feels trapped in why he kept everyone away from his lawn, not because he was a horrible neighbor, but to protect everyone around him. Because of this, she sheltered him from the outside. You can almost say that the house's movement looks more real than the actual humans, and if you've seen this movie as much as I have, I'm pretty sure others can vouch for this. This was a great ending to a story like this and finishing what should have been done a long time ago. And in terms of our trivia question, the tricycle scene at the beginning of the movie is a homage to Stanley Kubrick's film rendition of Stephen King's The Shining in 1980. So I'm really wondering what your thoughts are, and what did you think was the best moments from this film, and whether you consider this to be only a Halloween movie or not. And if you like videos like this, let me know and stick around, maybe subscribe if you do.